Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Hopefully everyone had a fantastic long weekend, or I guess our American audience had a fantastic long weekend with the
You might still be
holiday.
like vibing off of Canadian Thanksgiving. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the long game.
If not, you're enjoying the never-ending Black Friday sales.
Oh my gosh, can we just talk about the fact that I think Black Friday started like October 30th this year?
So this didn't exist before. We didn't used to have these things.
I find this infuriating, by the way. Because like I had a list of things that I was going to look for on Black Friday.
Yeah.
And suddenly now it's like I have to spread out my Black Friday shopping like for 3 weeks, and I'm still not convinced that like I got the best deals.
Now
So
you're uncertain and you're not satisfied.
very stressful, very stressful. So note to brands out there, please keep Black Friday on Black Friday if you're doing it at all. Like
keep Black Friday. This is like you want to keep it pure or something.
keep it pure, yeah.
The real you're losing the meaning of the holiday
Yeah,
here.
seriously. Now that said, I'm also the person that's like putting up the Christmas decor like November 1st. So shout out to our neighbors who have the most epic Christmas holiday escape in their yard that they start putting up early November. They finally turned their lights on yesterday. So very exciting to see
Like
that.
their Christmas lights.
Yeah, the
I was
Christmas
like,
lights.
Oh, have they been like black since Halloween?
Yeah, like when we came home,
Just not into giving
they've
candy.
had them all set out like on the lawn, but last night was the first night that they had them turned on, and it was very exciting for me.
Okay.
So 'tis the season, and that's a lot of what we wanted to chat about today. Is just sort of, a few of the holiday things, a couple follow-ups to our last Q&A episode, kind of talking about that strength training phase, which I think plays really nicely into the busy holiday season.
Yeah, and it's contentious. I mean, you always
It is
get more
contentious.
feedback when you say something and people are like, you can't do that.
Maybe we should really lean into it. Like other coaches don't want you to do strength training ever.
Well, usually we try and lean a little bit into the cross training, which we've talked about strength training is sort of under that cross training umbrella.
And we'll link in the show notes to our cross training is not a crime t-shirt, which you really should be wearing right now to show off.
I may have lost it, to be honest, but
Oh boy. Oh boy. Can't take you
it's a great
anywhere.
shirt. Yeah, you
It
should
is
get
a
this
great
cross training is not a crime. It's got our logo, which if you're watching YouTube, you can see it behind us. That's on the back. And then on the front, it says cross train is not a crime, which is, it is odd. It's a lot of coaches, which I'm always amazed. Yeah, they don't like, and I can see why. It's, the one comment we got, which was on the quote, the pull quote. You always put pull quotes on Instagram, like a highlight from the
Follow
episode.
us at Consummate Athlete on Instagram.
And so this was sort of me saying, you can probably take a month off of your biking in the fall and it's okay. And maybe you do some strength training and some cross training. You'll probably start noticing that the niggles and the sores and stuff get better. To me, that seems obvious. You don't put your butt on a saddle and maybe you don't have a saddle sore anymore after a while. But then this person was like, yeah, but you gotta, really go slow. And I was like, okay, I mean, if you listen to the episode, we sort of talked about that, but I get it.
Nevertheless, I think it's really good to point out, cool your jets, Glassford. Everything's fine. I don't think they were mad at you. I think they were just making like a good reminder, because I think, let's be honest, a lot of us, myself included,
Sure.
go into the gym at this time of year and like see that squat rack, see the bro that just loaded it up and left the weights on. He walks away and you're like, I can totally do this.
Sure.
And then you slip a disc. So
Sure. So we did talk about the 1 set of 8 as the way to start in and
did you like
body
check
weight
that
at home.
before we recorded this just to make sure?
I'm actually not confident that I did, but I'm pretty sure that's what we talked about.
I think you did.
I do think that's a good way to start. And it's sort of like running, right? Like, again, what we were talking about is coaches don't like it, and they don't like it because athletes do get injured a lot. Running is the most dangerous thing you can do. Like, as you say, people go strength train once, they're super sore, they never do it again because their biking got affected. Now, if you weren't doing your biking in this block, you wouldn't really even know that fact. But all that to say, I do get why coaches are nervous about it. And so it is important that we ease into these things. And it's always just like, you want to almost test the waters. This is like running and strength. It's like 1 set of 8, do that for a week and just, okay. That was really easy and I'm not sore at all. Okay, then add something to it from there. And running similar, go for a 30-minute walk, run 6 times, 30 seconds, And if you can walk at the end of that week, progress from there, you know, follow the couch to 5K from there. But I do think that's like, you know, screen yourself a little bit.
I think there's like nothing wrong with doing even at least the first week just home with body weight, or like maybe a 10 or 20 pound, whatever, like little dumbbell you happen to have around.
Whatever you have. Yeah.
Before you start thinking about like needing to purchase a 40-pound kettlebell or join the gym or anything like that. I think there's so much to be gained from, just that very lightweight.
One set of Route 8 thing, I didn't invent it. You know, Dan Johns talked about it, but he didn't invent it, right? Like it's you know, this is just 8. Like, you know, 3 sets of 8 is sort of like, most people know that it's written into, like, if you buy fitness equipment, like 3 sets of 8 to 12. That's like the standard thing. But when you're new to it, like one set is enough. And what I do is one set of 8 by 8 exercises. So push up, you know, exercises, squat, lunge, step up. And the nice thing then is that if you do 8 different exercises for these 8 to 12 reps, you know, you're getting a lot of variety there too. So then the soreness isn't quite as much as if you did, you know, 3 sets of 8 step ups, then that's a lot of load on just your step up muscles. But if you did squat, step up, lunge, you know, there's a little more variety there.
Yeah. And we actually have a strength training pre-made plan over on Training Peak. So we'll link to that in the show notes. So if you do think that you do want to try a strength training block, just a few weeks of it, we'll just put that right in the show notes. So it'll make it super easy and go right into your Training Peaks, which I think is actually like part of why people don't like trying the strength training, is because it's not in their Training Peaks, and that kind of stresses people out that they're going to have like a week or like, you know, 4 weeks of just nothing in there.
Sure. So the one we made is, you know, I guess towards this, you know, I'm only going to do a block of strength. We do have another one that's meant to be added on to, you know, if you've bought a plan that isn't strength, and, you know, it's sort of risky to combine plans, but you could add it, you know, or as the base, maybe you're going to build your own cardio or endurance training on top of it. And it's more of your standard, like, you know, cycling strength, you know, 3 blocks of it. But the one we're talking about today is more this, like, I'm going to do a strength block as, you know,
where you might like walk or maybe do a couple easy spins kind of thing, but you're really like mostly off the bike.
This is your main training. Yeah.
So we will include that over in the show notes. And definitely hit us up if you have any more questions about that. That definitely got a lot of engagement on Instagram. All pretty positive, I'm going to say. A lot of people seemed really into the idea and like pretty excited about maybe trying it.
No one was super mad about it.
No one was mad at you. It's okay. You're fine.
Well, and again, like the sales thing is like, I mean, a lot of people don't do anything. So if you're only doing strength, it's really not that bad. And there's actually a whole subset of the world, way more people than ride bikes, that, you know, only go to the gym. And I'm putting only in quotes. It's fine. It's great. Like, it is actually quite a valuable type of exercise, and you still get cardiovascular benefit from lifting weights.
Yes.
It is still movement. So
maybe last thing on that is definitely if you want to start going heavier and stuff like that, we do recommend, you know, if you're new to it, if you've never worked with someone before, it might be worth, you know, working with a trainer just to make sure that you have your form dialed. It doesn't have to be a, you know, forever relationship or anything, but I think getting good form, especially as the weights go up, is just so important. So just be very like conscientious of that.
And I mean, I think don't let that stop you, but yeah, definitely as you get going, it is a barrier. A lot of people feel like they feel dumb, like they don't know what they're doing, so they stop doing it, or they're, you know, legitimately concerned about hurting themselves. Now, again, body weight, start there. Like, people can get very strong with body weight in their home, so don't let it stop you from getting started. But as you get going and you're like, okay, now I'm curious about the gym, then it might be worth, you know, figuring out. A lot of gyms, when you're in them, will have like a orientation type thing to help you with that. But if you poke around, I would imagine you can find a personal trainer or something who would give you, you know, a bit of a lesson. It's always tough with these things to find someone who's, a lot of the personal trainers now understandably don't want to bother with one-offs, right? They want you to sign up for extended periods. So it can be tough to find that, but not impossible.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time, if you just ask too, like, you'll be able to find that. But anyway, moving on from strength, we wanted to kind of get into a few of like the common holiday questions. And I know for some people, this is a very like eye-rolly topic. And like, let's be honest, you know, every single like fitness magazine, women's magazine covers the how to do the holidays without gaining 10 pounds kind of content every year. That is really not our vibe necessarily. And if you didn't listen to our episode a couple weeks ago with Carolyn Burkholder, the dietitian, who really talked about off season and race weight and actually a lot of holiday stuff, I think that's worth going back and giving it a listen, because I think she really broke down sort of these like stressors over the holidays, whether it's eating or exercise. I thought she broke them down in a very smart way. But since we are kind of the week after Thanksgiving, the week after, everyone kind of starts hitting the holiday parties, and maybe you already had, you already had a big Thanksgiving, possibly a big Thanksgiving weekend. A lot of people start getting a little bit stressed around this point, that they are, oh, I didn't have time to do my training because I had all this family stuff, or I, had a lot of pumpkin pie because it was, a holiday. So how do you talk to clients who are getting stressed about, let's start with lack of training around the holidays?
It's a tricky one, I guess, right? Like, I think this is where we plan ahead. And I think it is sort of where we get nervous sometimes, is like we're in this rush for a race that's coming, but, the race is until June. So there is sort of this, thinking ahead. And so we talk about that, 2 weeks or 2 months, and then we talk about 2 years. So in the 2 years, this is, the race is this year and next year. And then that helps you plan ahead for like what work needs to be done. And so we know the holidays are in there, and so we can chunk those up. And so it's really just making sure, it may be a reason to try and start training before New Year's, like on January 1, right? If you've been training October and November, not seriously, but just putting in that early base. There's no reason you can't plan a rest week or a complete off week. A lot of people go on vacation or are traveling, around the country to family. So I think it's really just planning it in so that it doesn't feel like you're, cheating on your plan or something like that.
Yeah. And I do think this is like the looking ahead at the schedule, because this is the time of year where, yes, like Saturday, Sunday is still the weekend, but there's also then a lot of midweek stuff. This year's actually fantastic because Christmas falls on a Monday, which is pretty much a rest day for most people. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I don't actually even have to worry about not doing my run on Christmas. I can just focus on being home with the family. But I think, a lot of people, you're going to have to shift schedules around, right? Like maybe Monday is normally your rest day, but you actually have your company party on Wednesday. So, you're not going to be able to do your normal like Wednesday intervals after work or whatever. So I think just being a little bit more like looking ahead at the calendar, kind of seeing what's coming up, understanding there might be a couple weeks where you do have 2 rest days or, 2 really light days.
Sure.
But not trying to like cram your normal schedule into a schedule that then has like 5 events in a week on top of it.
Sure. And that's sometimes okay too. I mean, there's weeks where, I'll be tired or something like that, and I might not do that Wednesday key workout, but I don't necessarily even move it. Right. And that's sometimes we have that workout, when you can't do your workout post, that's like the 6 S's, you have shift and swap and substitute and all these variations. And I think skip is, I think that was one of the points in that, is that a lot of times skip is just the one to use. So if it doesn't, certainly plan, if you can just sort of shift the week a little bit and Wednesday's an off day, that's okay sometimes. But the problem is that like time continues to go. Like there's no way to make Saturday is, if Saturday's Saturday, it's coming, the race day is not moving, time elapses. So sometimes just, and we know that I guess that's what the is implicit in that, is that the endurance training, the stuff that no one talks about, is actually the most important, that and frequency. So, maybe on that Wednesday you do a morning spin for half an hour or something, and then you at least have the same frequency of rides in the week.
Which gets to your something as one of the S's.
Doing something. Yeah, exactly. And then you just, on Thursday, maybe you usually do a moderate sort of mountain bike ride or whatever is usually on Thursday, and you just right back on the plan, right? Like you don't need to like berate yourself because you were out at a company party. Just go out and do the Thursday workout and then continue with your plan. And I think sometimes that skip, you have to know yourself a little bit, but I think that's usually sticking to the plan, not falling off the plan. You missed Wednesday, you suck, so now you never train again.
Right.
But I do think that often is a easy way to look at it too, is just like, okay, Wednesday I'm going to just get a walk at lunch, and that's Wednesday. And then Thursday I'm going to go do the workout I was supposed to do, which is an endurance workout, which is, the 80% that matters.
Yeah. And I think that's really what Carolyn was talking about in the episode a couple weeks ago, of just like, sometimes these are just days, right? This is like one workout. This is one meal or a couple of meals or whatever. Like the problem only comes when this becomes your new routine, right? When like every day you're eating like it's Christmas or training like it's Christmas, that is to say, not training at all. But I think, yeah, if this is just a couple days in the season, we make way too much. Like, there's way too many articles that are like, oh, well, when you're at the holiday party, make sure you load up on like the vegetable crudité and the appetizer. You know what? If there is a bacon wrapped date, I'm eating that. I do not care for the raw carrot celery nonsense.
We were just watching Frasier. What was Marty's? They were on a cruise and they were doing a buffet, and he was lecturing Niles about, don't fill up on the
the breads, the rolls, the chips and your dips. That's rookie mistake. Big lunch beforehand, rookie mistake.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff you would read. I mean, I think that's probably good advice. I always, the white roll and stuff like that. If you don't enjoy the white roll, if the white roll is your, what did you say? Crudité. What is that?
Crudité. You've never heard of it? It's like the appetizers when it's like raw veggies and stuff.
If you're a white bun person, then I guess that's for you, right?
Lean in.
I guess that's, I don't know. Like, I don't even know if that's good or bad anymore, right? Are you supposed to do it? Are you not? I don't know.
Well, I think that's probably a good point as far as like, you might as well enjoy it, because probably in 6 months, it's going to be like headlines that are like, white bread, the new miracle food. And you're like, damn, I should have had the buns.
Right.
At any rate, a single meal does not wreck your entire life here. And I mean, I think the enjoyment, and again, Carolyn talked about this, like the enjoyment of it where you're having, the couple dates wrapped in bacon or whatever, and you're genuinely like loving it. Like, versus you're having one, but then you're like really stressed about it and like, mentally like adding it up and thinking like, oh, I need to do XYZ tomorrow to like make up for it. No, just, it's one meal. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, move on. Everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our holiday reminder here. Enjoy it. Don't make it into this like no pain, no gain. Pain is weakness leaving the body, like whatever. Just actually enjoy your holidays, please. And that said, I think we can talk about like creating smart holiday traditions. I know, with your family and with mine, we've kind of tried to push them towards doing more walks and stuff like that. I mean, everyone and their mother loves pickleball these days. So could you do like a family pickleball tournament or whatever on Christmas or on whatever holiday?
Yeah, and that's, I try and get out. It's harder as you get older, for sure. You want to talk to people as well. But, if the kids are playing hockey or catch or something like that,
I will sit at the kids' table all day long.
Try and do that a little bit. We have dogs and stuff around too. So that's a good excuse to get out for just to, take the dogs out and run and walk and stuff as well.
Yeah, so just trying to kind of sprinkle in some of those more active traditions. Again, I don't think you need to like do the family 10K turkey trot jingle 5K, whatever. If you like it, more power to you. I can't even fathom trying to like drag my family to a Christmas 5K. I think they would mutiny and it would be a problem. So figure out where the boundaries are as far as these like healthy, fun traditions go, and try to keep the fun as a priority. Yeah. And then the other thing we wanted to chat about, our gift guide came out last week. A few things on there. So one of our big ones that Peter may or may not be getting is finally he's going to get his mountain bike bell.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about why this bell is particularly awesome?
Yeah, so I've always been looking for this bell that's, both a bear bell, so like one that just jingles as you go, I'd
like to be clear that I've gotten him many bells and none of them have, they've all been crap apparently.
Well, then they need to be loud too, but so you want like one that jingles like a, reindeer, I guess would be festive.
Very festive.
But then turns off. You don't want it to jingle all the time. Or all the way.
Jingle all the way.
So it pulls down and then turns into a bear bell that, like, if you were going down a single track and you're concerned about hikers and you want to alert people
or
bears or whatever, it makes a bunch of noise as you're going. But then it also has a dinger, which is your more traditional, like anyone in an urban environment. Like sometimes you're supposed to have a bell, right, where you like ding ding to let the the hikers, the pedestrians know you're passing or whatever. So Yeah, so it's a great little product and very light and compact and easy to take on and off.
Yeah, and you have a couple clients who recommended that. That's how we came up with that one.
That one,
so.
there's two. Yeah.
So we have a link to that just in the show notes. We'll link to our whole gift guide. The big one that I'm campaigning for everyone after this past weekend is a charging station for all of your various watches, devices, headphones, etc. After. And I have an article up on the website about this. I wrecked our Sunday morning because I could not find my watch. I swore it was on the counter where I left it.
Did you find it yet?
Laundry basket.
Okay.
So I did have it on the counter, but then I like scooped it up with my dirty laundry and then just tossed it in my laundry basket.
Gotcha.
So I thought of it last night, and then when we got home, I looked for it, found it. So life is good. Watch has been recovered, but we were like 20 minutes late leaving the house. We were already kind of running a little behind schedule. Then I'm super stressed. I'm like secretly blaming you and assuming that you've taken it somewhere. Like,
I sensed that a little bit.
well, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. Like this is like a pretty normal.
So is a
thing.
charging station people can buy, or what are you talking about?
There's a bunch of really cool ones. I have one linked in our gift guide, but there's a bunch of different ones. The one that I linked to is this really nice little bamboo setup that has, little little places to put different chargers. It has like a little wireless charger component to it. I don't like the ones that are just wireless pads because a lot of our watches wouldn't charge on those.
Sure.
But I do like one where it's just got like little organized slots, so you can fit your cycling computer, you can fit your phone, your headphones. It even has like a little curvy thing for your watch to go on, which I like. So really just that reminder to charge your stuff and have that one base for it, which is embarrassing because I do have it. Like I actually have a charging station in my desk drawer that I did a whole video on. It's like actually a lovely little setup. But this, I had to relearn the lesson of like when you get home from a run, your stuff goes on the charging station.
It is. I mean, it sounds like a very odd choice that Molly's made here, but it is something, we have it in our book, Becoming a Consummate Athlete, like just this organization. And it does, there are these little, I don't want to say marginal gains because I think that means doping, but, there are these little things where if you go out on a ride and your device dies or your shifter battery dies or you get a flat and you can't practice putting a plug in, or which isn't really related to charging, but you get what I'm saying. There's all these little things where the one thing is not a big deal. Molly not having a watch on her ride, like you can use your phone, you can use whatever, but like you say, the mindset gets thrown off. Maybe you don't record the data, which is pros or cons. Maybe you don't do your workout because you don't have the thing, not that you couldn't, but you don't because you're pissed off and you can't think of how you would do a workout without a device. So just all these things just over time, add up. And it's like, if you had a more successful workout, would that then spiral into more and more and more? Or do you just sort of like, never get, that exponential gain?
Exactly. Yeah. Like forget the 20 minutes, the like mindset I was in. I was so grumpy for most of the drive. Like I snapped out of it and it was fine, but definitely like just frustrating, like looking back at that and just be like, that was a really like wasted morning as far as like time and energy went. And that could have all been solved with a charging station. So there you have it.
Apparently I was telling you this, but if you would have grabbed the watch and said, I am holding my watch and looked at it, then you would have multi-sensory encoding where you would have remembered that you put it in the laundry basket. I am putting my watch in the laundry basket. Yeah. I'm not really sure what you do with that, but apparently that's how you don't lose your keys.
Although, you know what? To give credit to the Coros Pace 2, it has been through the wash once and it survived. So that watch, pretty
Aren't
bomb-proof.
most watches waterproof?
Waterproof, yes, but like a laundry cycle, I think, is different than like
tossing it around in detergent and stuff. I don't know. Maybe hot.
And I also don't think that one, and I could be totally lying, I don't think that's a swimming watch. Yeah. I think it's like waterproof in that like if you're running in the rain, it's going to be okay. But I don't think it's really for swimming. So at any rate, we have that. We have a bunch of our merch, including the book Peter's alluded to, Becoming a Consummate Athlete. But we also have the sweatshirt that I pretty much live in after every run that says run all the miles, eat all the snacks. We have that in ride and run. People seem to
there you go.
Really enjoy that. The cross training is not a crime t-shirt that we mentioned there. And My favorite Canty Break, Can't Stop, Didn't Stop shirt for
That
the
one's
cyclocrossers who are
very niche, but it's a good
very
one.
niche. For the cyclocrossers who are old enough to remember.
So, like, to explain, the pre-disc brakes, there was these brakes that touched your rims, and they didn't really work, especially in cyclocross,
At
because they
all.
were like even worse than the other brakes that were on the rims. These were even worse brakes, and for some reason we couldn't use other. I guess it was for clearance of the tires was the main reason, but also just because we couldn't change things because it's cyclocross. So yeah, you just sort of slide around and never stop.
Well, and back then the joke was can't stop, won't stop. So this is for the people who've continued to race cyclocross but recall the days of racing with Canty brakes because it's can't stop, didn't stop.
So there you go. So, some ideas. I mean, I think your Shred Girls book series and the new Strong Girl is also like a great gift if you're trying to get, we always see the both sides, right? It's the readers who aren't really getting into the movement too much can sometimes be tricked into, trying out biking because they read about it, and then vice versa. We actually saw this at the NICA event we were at just recently.
I've been in tears about this story.
The kid didn't read, and then they realized that there was these books about bikes, and then they went back to the car and just started crushing the book.
It was the best. Oh my gosh, my heart. I'm like teared up just thinking about it. The mom came over and she's like, she's been reading in the car for an hour. And she had come over to the table just like, Mom, I don't want a book. And then grabbed it and was like, these books are about bikes. And it was the nicest thing that has like ever happened to me. Also, a girl telling me that I reminded her of Phoebe from the Shred Girls series, who is like the cool coach that's like pretty punk rock. I was like, it's almost like I wrote a character that was like the person that I want to be. So that was a very, that made me so happy. So we have links to all of those in the show notes. And a few other little things. The digital pressure gauge is pretty much the stocking stuffer that we always recommend.
Need to have multiples. And yeah, again, when you're talking about just, if you haven't been testing your tires, this is the question. It's like, what tire pressure should I run the day of the race, day before or the day of the race? And it's, tire pressure is super important. It depends a little bit on your discipline, how important it is. But it does. It can influence flats. It can influence comfort. It can influence if you're crashing, right? Like it's a big deal. So get a digital pressure gauge.
Yeah. So definitely check that out. Like I say, we'll put the link in the show notes, and we also have like a ton of old gift guides that are all still like pretty relevant, I would say.
Yeah.
This one is really just our, our greatest hits, where it's all new stuff this year, actually, with the exception of that digital pressure gauge. That's the only one.
The Topeak Smart Gauge there's an updated one now, which is nice because it does go to the decimal places, which for the cross people is important.
Right. Yeah,
so it is a new Topeak gauge. If you have the old Topeak gauge and you break them as much as I do, then you might need the new Smart Topeak gauge.
And I will say the caveat with that is do not go on Amazon and just look for pressure gauge. Like you will end up, if you get like the cheap Amazon one, which I've done, or it's not even Amazon, I forgot what brand it is, but if you get the cheaper one and you don't get the Topeak, the specific one that's in there, get the Topeak one, because otherwise you're going to get one that just works on like Presta valves. Schrader valves, sorry, not Presta.
Yeah, like for cars.
Yeah, so you're going to end up with
can't get a car one. Car ones don't work.
You're going to end up with a super junky one. So just get the one that we put in the link.
And you also want digital.
Yes.
You don't want analog. You can't tell, because we're talking about 1 psi or a 0.2 psi if you're in cyclocross, right? Like it matters. So
yeah. Oh, I also like the idea of getting, we talked about this in the last episode, a little mini frother thing for anyone who is really into their like whey protein, their AG1, drinkag1.com/MollyH.
Well, or just like fancy milk drinks, I guess, too.
But I think for the athletes, if you're having a lot of like sports drinks or like I say, whey protein or any like supplements that involve powder form, the little frother has been the greatest thing in the world. So I'll put one of them into the gift guide, I think.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, definitely check that out. And moving on to our last thing, you had some points in an article you're working on here about before you start thinking about goal setting for next year. We're heading into that new year, new you time of year, and we'll do probably another episode on more of that like goal setting for 2024. But you actually were thinking a lot more about gap assessment in the last week. So do you want to talk about that so people can maybe start ruminating on that before we get into our goal setting? And we'll do that as another episode.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a delicate balance, right? You want to, and I probably go too far sometimes into like looking into limiters and gaps and what's wrong with people.
Well, you are a coach. I mean, like.
So I do, my personal improvement is to try and recognize and celebrate and what is it, like validation? What's the other word for this?
I don't know. You just want to be Ted Lasso.
Yeah. So I got to pull out Coach Glasso here and be super positive. So I think
Please, no one call him that.
And I think the reality is, and I think this is important, this is something I've come to realize in the last few years, is you do want to race to your strengths, and your strengths are going to be your strengths. Like you sort of like, you're going to gravitate to a certain thing. If you're a sprinter and an aggressive person, really like, you like the start, you like you're a track racer, you really like the elbow to elbow, you're not going to change. Like, you're a heavy metal person. Like, I get it. I see you. Right now, if you're the endurance, I like to ride alone. I like to steady. I never like to accelerate. I like to, there's these sort of things. And now you can then pick your events based on that. So that is part of the limiters, gaps analysis, season review is like, what did you enjoy? What are you really good at? But then in all of those events, if you're the slow person who doesn't like to accelerate and you're doing Unbound or you're doing whatever, there's still points in that race where if you would accelerate to get up a hill or to get on a wheel, riding with people is a gap, in this case, right? So that's what you start seeing is, you would have had a faster event or a more enjoyable event if these things happened, if these critical moments, if you were able to respond to them. And that's in the race, in the event. This could go for bike packers. This doesn't have to be racing, right? Like, what were the limiters? Often things like fueling, cramping, these things come up, and then it starts looking back at the training, which is then sort of what we're really looking at is, if you're a gravel racer, were you on gravel? If your gravel race is hilly, were you on hills? More often than not. And then if that's the case, you weren't able to get to hills, you weren't there, then what can we do to try and close that gap? So when we're talking about gap analysis, you're here, point A, you need to get to here, point B. This is the standard for the goal you want to set. Next year you want to be 5% faster, or you want to beat this time. What is that gap in the things you can control, which is your practice, that can help close that gap, right? That's gaps analysis. That's sort of the sometimes that gets missed is, it sounds like a gap, but you're trying to close the gap, right?
I like that because I think you're right. A lot of the time I would think, okay, I'm more of a diesel engine, like go all day. But if I'm not training my weakness of being able to like accelerate on a hill or something, like that's where I'm losing a ton of time in races. And that's where I'm like losing the field. If you look back at my Leadville Marathon, for example, like walking the hills instead of running them was where I lost the, few women that were ahead of me.
Yeah. And you're doing great with that. I know David and Megan talk about like team no walk or something like that.
Been trying.
Which obviously, like, you still hike sometimes, you have to power hike sometimes, but.
Well, and I have the huge disadvantage of being 5'3". Like, it is so frustrating to be running with I end up running with a lot of guys a lot of the time at the, towards the front, and their hike is still my run. So if I hike, I'm instantly like out the back because my stride is so much shorter than theirs.
Yep.
So huge unfair advantage to the tall people.
Well, and does get to, solving problems for the individual, right? And it's,
and that means I need to keep running. Like, unfortunately,
sure. Yeah.
That's how I get up the hill.
And so you can get creative, right? Like, not everyone lives in a hilly area. I have clients in Florida, and then they want to go do, something, in Colorado. So then you have to start thinking, like, how can we start chipping away at this gap? That could be trips, that would be an obvious one. Travel too. This could be a weekend travel, a camp travel. And then you can get, a little, the Florida people will always have an overpass that they know is within, an hour ride from their home, and they can go up and down this overpass or River Valley or something like that. And then, anything else that ways too. So can you remember, I had notes on this gap analysis, and was there anything else that we wanted to cover around gap analysis?
I mean, I think just starting with that before you start really thinking towards your goals and your plans for next year, like especially actually really thinking about it without thinking about your goals, because I think it's one of those things where if you start thinking about it in conjunction with your goals, you start kind of getting a bit more into the weeds with it. I think you're better off like thinking about it first, and then like later we're applying it to the actual goal. So I think definitely do these as kind of almost two separate activities. And then eventually they're going to kind of come together and be like a nice Venn diagram of like, okay, these are the couple things I need to work on. But thinking about it without having the goal like front and center.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a ton more on that, but it's a good thing to do, is to just sort of look at, yes, the race, but then also even in your performance, were there things, where were you held back? Where were there hitches? Was there things that where you didn't end up getting to train as consistently? Just
There's so many like technical and fueling limiters that I think we neglect during race seasons. This is a really good time to kind of be working on those. I know we'll talk about this in an upcoming episode where we are talking more Leadville as we get into the 8-9 months to Leadville kind of time for bike and run people. But I mean, for me, it's thinking through the pack situation, right? Like I might have my fueling dialed, but at the moment we do not yet have my like pack swapping and like what I'm doing with my gear figured out. Same with headlamps. So lots of little things to be working on now as far as like those gaps and limiters go.
Yeah, and there are all these just little, that could be a minute or whatever, right? Some of the aid station stuff can get longer, but just having that pack that doesn't rub your back raw, and it's all these little details. They talk about I think it was John Wooden was like the basketball coach, and then he had those socks, and he always talked. The first day was they would go through like putting the socks on and tying the shoes up so that there would never be like blisters or like laces coming undone. And
if he could teach me how to do that, that would be fantastic.
And his thing was that then you wouldn't lose time to these like little blisters, and then you get injuries from the blisters and these sort of things. And it's I don't know, it's one of these things that probably gets blown into proportion, but sort of an interesting thing where you're looking at these little pieces, and indeed those packs, or again the bike setup, these sort of things can be important. But I think big rocks to me are just when you think about the goal that you had, you're like, were you in that environment frequently? And more that's what I'm looking at. Like, are you riding on just pavement alone, but your race is this like super hot, riding with people, gravel, hilly, technical, and then how much, not every day, obviously we still do things on the pavement, on the whatever the situation is, flat or whatever, but trying to find that environment so that it's more familiar.
Love it. All right. We'll definitely head to the show notes on this episode for all of the links to everything we talked about here, pre-made strength training plan, gift guide, all that fun stuff. And we will be back next week with another fun interview. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.